Your next type of coral reef, you have the Atoll Reef. You can see that it's a circular reef and it forms from a volcanic island. And your last type of coral reef is the barrier reef. And so you're probably familiar with the Great Barrier Reef off the coast of Australia here. Um, this is an area where we have a reef that's at least 10 kilometers away from land. Here's a picture. And so we have some major impacts on coral reefs, some anthropogenic impacts on coral reefs, so human caused. And the first one you see here is sedimentation or siltation. So anytime we're going to be increasing erosion off coastlines, a lot of these coral reefs, as you saw, a fringing reef, they're kind of close to these coastlines. They can actually be covered by sediment or silt that's basically eroding off of beaches or even coming down from major rivers or streams. Pollution, runoff, ocean dumping, any type of pollution can harm the coral reef ecosystem. Overfishing, so we can be removing vital and important fish that are playing symbiotic roles with other types of organisms in the corals themselves. Ocean acidification, this has become a major problem ever since we've been dealing with the increase in carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. If you remember, we said that the major sink or reservoir for carbon dioxide is going to be the ocean. So as the carbon dioxide is going to enter into the ocean, we're going to have the formation of carbonic acid, and it's causing ocean acidification. And so acidic waters have been shown to kill off the corals. Direct disturbances, so anchor dragging, so if you have boats that are putting their anchors down into the ocean, as they drag along the bottom of the ocean, they can be physically ripping up the portions of the coral reefs themselves. People going down and looking at the coral reefs, you're not supposed to touch the corals, but some people do, maybe on accident. So divers damaging the corals themselves, collecting specimens for research. And something that we've seen recently includes coral bleaching. And if you look at my two pictures here, in the top right-hand corner, we have a vibrant coral reef ecosystem. So lots of colors, lots of fish. And at the bottom right-hand corner, we have a picture of coral bleaching. And so this can happen from a variety of reasons. Scientists are still trying to understand and study the outcome of coral bleaching, but a lot of it is thought to be a cause, or a major cause is the warming of the ocean. So due to the warming of the atmosphere, due to our greenhouse gases and global climate change, we can see the warming of the ocean, maybe some increased UV radiation, some more of those UV rays that are making their way down through the ozone layer. But the idea here is that those zooxanthellae that live inside the corals are purposely expelled by the corals when they're stressed. And so when they're stressed, they're released, and then that causes this bleaching color. Major impacts of humans on the ocean. We have a few here. We're going to go through these throughout the year because a lot of this course involves pollution. But something called non-point source pollution, which we're going to revisit with water pollution chapter, which I believe is chapter 22. This is when we have pollution into waterways and we cannot identify exactly where it's coming from. It's difficult to control legislatively. And some examples here, the best example actually is agricultural runoff from fertilizers. And don't forget that fertilizers that include nitrogen and phosphorus, they're going to cause eutrophication. Also some runoff of pesticides, livestock waste can also contribute to eutrophication. So this is basically runoff from land, and we're not quite sure exactly who is polluting what, so it's difficult to control. Invasive species, which we've talked about before, they take the habitat of the native species, or they can even eat the food source of the native species, so they can also be a problem. We talked about ballast water with our zebra mussel, so that's an example. Overfishing, so we're seeing many of the fish, you can think about the tuna, the bluefin tuna and different types of fish in the ocean that are being overfished right now for human consumption. So they're commercially depleted, and we're really looking at a lot of fish farming or aquaculture, which can also cause issues in the ocean. Bycatch, so this is when you throw a line or you have some type of net and you accidentally catch a species that you're not intending to. So if you're trying to catch a certain type of fish, you end up catching a sea turtle. Um, Many times they're thrown back into the ocean, but the sea turtle could have been hurt, stressed, and so maybe as it's thrown back into the ocean, it's not going to be as strong as it normally would be, and it will be eaten by a predator. So bycatch is an unintended catch. Aquaculture, so this is something that a lot of the coastlines in developing countries have been converted to. We're doing it here in the United States, basically fish farming. And when we do this in the ocean and the marine environment, there's a lot of pollution and waste that builds up with all of these fish in one area. Sometimes fish can escape, and basically it's just going to cause a lot of pollution. Point source pollution is the opposite of non-point source pollution. Point source pollution is when we have pollution from a specific source. So we can actually identify where it's coming from. An example of this would be like a cruise ship, and so if they were to release the sewage from on board into the ocean, we would know exactly where it's coming from, and that would be an example of point source pollution. Coastal development, it's going to destroy the intertidal zone and the areas right close to shore. You can see here it can destroy habitats such as salt marshes and mangrove swamps. Habitat destruction, so we're going to talk about different types of nets later on in the year, but this is showing you a trawl net, and so this boat here is trying to catch benthos or bottom-dwelling organisms, and it's basically dragging this net on the bottom of the ocean, which is ripping up the bottom of the ocean. And climate change, so coral reefs and polar areas are very vulnerable to increases in temperature, and that is due to us, a lot of it, putting CO2 and other greenhouse gases such as methane into the atmosphere. And so that is all the information you need for your marine environment.